Could the Detroit Pistons end up trading Isaiah Stewart this offseason? We're going to talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Later on the podcast, we'll talk about, is Cam Whitmore the favorite as of right now? I'm recording this on June 15th. With the draft a week away, is he the favorite to be selected at 5 for the Detroit Pistons? We'll talk about that. And then also, I had a question asked by one of you guys, which I thought was really interesting, and it was, are the Pistons still in a position where they should be absorbing contracts for picks this offseason instead of using their cap space to sign a top free agent this offseason? We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But an unexpected topic, a topic I did not think I'd end up talking about, at least this early in the offseason. Maybe a little bit later if some stuff started heating up, maybe if it actually happened. But honestly, I did not expect to be talking about this. And that is the possibility of Isaiah Stewart being traded by the Detroit Pistons. Now, before all of you Stew fans, the Stew crew, go in the comment section with the pitchforks and you know, with the fire and all that stuff, I'm not suggesting it, okay? This was a report from James Edwards III that the Boston Celtics have called the Detroit Pistons about Isaiah Stewart, that they're interested in him. James also then, though, tweeted on Twitter that he believes that Isaiah Stewart will not be traded, and he does not see the Pistons moving on from Isaiah Stewart. So, just want to give my overall thoughts on the idea of trading. I almost would say like Saddiq Bey was the fan favorite before he was traded. Stu was definitely a fan favorite still, but I feel like Saddiq Bey almost was number one. Saddiq Bey gone. Now Isaiah Stewart's number one guy amongst the fan base. It seems like he's everyone's favorite player. It seems. So I don't want to come off and upset a lot of you guys, but yeah, I don't think the Pistons are going to trade Isaiah Stewart. I don't think they're going to trade him to the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics don't really have anything of interest for the Detroit Pistons, in my opinion. The one thing that the one player that they have in Boston that I think the Pistons would very much like on their team is Derek White. But Derek White at times was like their second best player in the playoffs, third best player in the playoffs for Boston. And I know there was a report that said that Boston's trying to move off one of their guards, but I doubt that it's Derek White. And the Pistons would have to attach like Isaiah Stewart, 31, and maybe like a 29 first-round pick too, just to get Derek White. And maybe even that wouldn't be enough to get Derek White. So, I wouldn't want to give up all of that for Derek White at that point. Everyone else on the team, I'm not too interested in them for Boston, so I don't think Boston's going to be able to get a deal with the Pistons if they actually are like that strongly about wanting Isaiah Stewart. So I don't think he's going to Boston. I don't think Boston's actually going to get him. I think that was just calling in. They're interested. Oh, we can't get him? Okay, cool. And they hung up. But I want to talk about the overall idea of trading Isaiah Stewart. Because I saw way too many fans. I'm probably going to upset some people here. I don't care, though. I saw way too many fans using the word untouchable when it comes to Isaiah Stewart. Let me just say this right now. I want to make this clear. I am not saying the Pistons should trade Stu. I am not saying the Pistons need to trade Stu. I am not saying I want the Pistons to trade Stu. Let me just get all three of those things out the way right now. However, the idea that Isaiah Stewart is untouchable on the Detroit Pistons is utterly insane. That is utterly insane. The Detroit Pistons have one player on their team that's untouchable. His name's Cade Cunningham. He is the only untouchable player on this roster. And then you got Jaden Ivey, who is damn near close to untouchable, though I think there's a price that can be met for him. I think there's a price, but it's so astronomically high that I don't think he's damn near close to untouchable. I almost feel the same way about Jalen Duren. So the clear untouchable, Cade Cunningham. Then Ivy and Duren, they're close to untouchables, but they have prices that could be met by a team that would make it worth it if teams were willing to go that high. Everyone else, tradable. Every single person, everyone else on this roster can be traded. There's not a single other player on this team that you should be holding on to like that. If a team were to come forward and offer, like, for example, let's just throw this out there. It's unrealistic. This is not going to happen. But let's just say this. I saw someone tweet me, what if the Pistons wanted to trade Isaiah Stewart and 31 for Dallas's 10th pick? Duh. Yeah, you do that deal. You do that deal. Dallas would never do it. But yeah, if you could do that deal, yeah, you trade Stu. Killian Hayes, obviously, tradable. James Wiseman, tradable. Bojan Bogdanovic, tradable. Marvin Bagley, tradable. Isaiah Livers, tradable. Hamidou Diallo, tradable. Every single other person on this team just won 17 games. There is not a damn soul on this roster outside of Cade Cunningham that's completely untouchable. The idea that Isaiah Stewart can't be traded is crazy. Now, I will say this. It seems like from what James has reported that Troy Weaver obviously is very, very high on Isaiah Stewart. So what probably is happening with Isaiah Stewart's value is he untradeable to the front office? No, he's not untradeable. But they value him to such a degree, which maybe I disagree with. You guys know I'm not the biggest fan of Stu. I'm not out on Stu, but I'm not the biggest fan of his future. What's likely the case is that the front office holds him in such high regard that the value they would want for him in a trade, no other team would even come close to sniffing. And that, if you want to take that and look at it as untradeable then, or untouchable, even that would rub me the wrong way. Like, again, this team just won 17 games. Anyone can be traded for the right price. Anyone. If you want to say that, then sure, I guess. That makes sense. Sure. Whatever. But do I expect Stu to be traded this offseason? No. I honestly think it's a better chance that he's starting at the forward position than he is traded. So I don't think Stu's going to be traded this offseason. I don't think Boston's going to get him. I don't think any team is going to have it would be willing to meet the value that Weaver would want in a trade for Isaiah Stewart. So yeah, I don't. The report seeing the Boston Celtics are interested in Isaiah Stewart and that Brad Stevens is interested in Isaiah Stewart, I guess it's pretty cool to see and makes one think that, like, okay, they see something in Stu. Maybe he is pretty valuable. Maybe he has a chance to be valuable, I should say. Not valuable right now. I don't think any player, again, on a 17-win team is valuable. But maybe he has a chance to be pretty valuable and Boston sees that. So I think that's cool. But yeah, Stu's not going anywhere this offseason. Maybe during the season. Maybe if he's a throw-in, an added piece, if they were going after a star or something, or like a borderline all-star kind of guy. Maybe in that scenario, but the Pistons definitely are not shopping Stu. And if a team would try to come for Stu, they would have to pay such a high price that it just wouldn't make sense for any team would do. So don't think Stu's going anywhere, but is what it is. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at @KukaHill. Do you guys think Isaiah Stewart could be traded this offseason? Obviously, another reason why he could be traded is because the front court is deep with a bunch of players. Stu, Duren, Bagley, Wiseman, potentially another pick in the NBA draft. You could maybe say Bojan is in that front court. Like, they're very deep with that, the front court, and it's likely that one of them is going to have to go. But I don't think it's going to be Stu. And one of the main reasons why Boston's really interested in him, and this is why a lot of Stu fans believe he will be super valuable, is because of his switchability defensively and how valuable that can be in the playoffs. So, and they also probably believe that some of the flashes he's shown as an outside shooter, maybe he could try to be like a broke man's version of Al Horford right now. Maybe they believe he could get there. So, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be traded, but I think that's why Boston's interested in him. But I don't think he's going to be traded. Anyways, like I said, let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill what you guys think. Do you guys think Isaiah Stewart could actually be traded this offseason again? Let me know. When we come back, is Cam Whitmore the favorite for the Detroit Pistons at number 5? We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I've got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means you always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buying tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you don't have to dig through your email. I know a lot of us, including myself, have like 300, 400 messages in that email, and you don't want to have to go digging through the email to find your tickets. Well, Gametime, it sends it directly to your phone. You don't have to worry about any of that. Download the Gametime app and create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off at Gametime. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with Gametime. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I just want to say thank you to you guys for the support you guys are showing on YouTube. I feel like we're the fastest growing fan base, the fastest growing community at Locked On right now in the Locked On NBA community. We're growing really, really fast, adding people to the Locked On Pistons community. Love to hear it. Love to see it. Continue to show that support. Continue to join the community. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, man. I really appreciate it. We're on our road to 10,000 subscribers. I appreciate all of you guys who have already hit that subscribe button. But the question we're asking here, is Cam Whitmore the favorite? And I guess I should say this. Locked On NBA mock draft has come out. If you can find it over on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel or Locked On NBA podcast as well. You guys saw who I picked. If you listened to it, I picked Ausar Thompson at 5. They were not fans of that pick, but I feel pretty strongly about it still. I like Ausar Thompson at that position at 5. I also like Jarris Walker. I flip-flop between those two guys. If we picked today, I probably would pick Jarris at 5. But it's so close between those two guys, I'm cool with either one of them. I would not have picked Cam. And we've talked about Cam a lot on the podcast, why I'm not as big on Cam. But if you guys want to hear their thoughts, they were not, Raphael and Isaac, they were not fans of my pick. I would be fine arguing with them and telling them why I still feel cool with that pick and why I disagree with them. But they're perfectly entitled to their opinions, and they disagree. They think Cam Whitmore should have been the pick. Cam Whitmore ended up falling to 8 for what it's worth in that draft. So it wasn't just me that passed up on him. 6, 7 passed up on him. 4, Houston passed up on him. So whatever. Go listen to Locked On mock draft today. Definitely cool listen and listen to what they had to say about the overall draft and how everything went. Anyways, we had the Athletic mock draft again on June 15th. And in this mock draft, James Edwards III, he selects Cam Whitmore at 5 for the Detroit Pistons. There was no real craziness that happened in the top 4. It went exactly how most of us expect. Wemby, Scoot, Brandon Miller, and Amin Thompson. So Cam Whitmore was there along with Ausar and Jarris Walker. James went with Cam Whitmore. He gave his reasonings. I'm not going to read his reasonings because you guys should be having an Athletic subscription. I don't want to ruin his work. So definitely go check that out to see his reasonings. But what I will read is the last little part of his blurb that I feel like is worthy of discussion. James says at the end here, quote, given that the Pistons view several players after pick 3 in similar tiers, Whitmore's combination of upside and fit, I think, leads to him being the selection if Detroit stays put at 5. There's 2 things I take away from this. First thing is that James continues to say if Detroit stays at 5, so it makes me think that there's a real chance that the Pistons trade out of it. Brian Windhorst talked about it on ESPN the other day. He said that he believes there's a chance they could trade out. JJ Redick talked about it on his podcast. He looks at the Pistons as a team that could trade back. And James has been saying for a while now that it is a chance that the Pistons could trade back in this draft to get multiple picks, or maybe they just trade it for a player. I doubt that happens. James has said he doesn't see the scenario where the Pistons don't have a first-round pick, so I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to most likely trade back, if anything. So that's one of my first takeaways. Second takeaway, obviously, is the fact that James believes that Whitmore is the favorite for 5. He didn't say the word favorite, but him selecting him there and giving his reasonings, it seems like that James wouldn't say this and select Cam Whitmore if he didn't have some kind of inside info or going off of some insight here. Do I believe Cam should be the favorite here? Look, no, I don't think Cam Whitmore should be the favorite for the Pistons at 5. If the Pistons were to pick him at 5, I wouldn't be mad. I said this a few weeks ago. The guys that are going to be available, at least we think, and there's going to be some shakeup possibly. The guys could fall. If Amen Thompson falls to 5, I'm taking him. Oh my God, my alarm on my phone went off. I apologize for that. But anyways, if Amen Thompson would have fallen to 5, I'm taking him and I'm celebrating, because that would have been like if the Pistons got 3 for me. But all the other guys, Cam, Jarris Walker, Asar Thompson, Taylor Hendricks, all these guys are so close that if the Pistons were to take any of them, I'm not going to be too mad about any of them, because they really are close. And if you've been commenting in the YouTube section, if you've been active on the Twitter spaces that I've been hosting, if you've been active in my Twitter community, like if you've been active in the Pistons community at all, any social medias, you'll see that there's so many different answers with Cam. There's so many people that want Cam. There's so many people that want Asar. There's so many people that want Taylor Hendricks. So many people that want Jarris. They are really close. So I don't blame anybody who would want Cam. I wouldn't be mad if the Pistons pick Cam. But I don't have Cam as the favorite at 5 for this reason. I've explained this on the podcast before. If you disagree, you can disagree. But this is where I feel, after watching all these guys, I feel confident in my evaluation at this point. I think I'm going to stay put. I feel pretty confident about it. Cam is a great athlete, explosive athlete. He's a good catch and shooter. Overall three-point shooting still isn't all the way there. I don't think he's answered all the questions with that yet. But as a raw catch and shooter, he's fine as a catch and shoot three-point shooter. You want to speed up his jumper a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be too big of an issue. And also, again, how explosive he is, I think he's going to draw a lot of free throws around the rim probably. He's a really good finisher. He's a good finisher with his offhand. There is reason to like him a lot, obviously. But where I look at Cam is, I think he's going to be a play finisher, which what a play finisher is, I don't believe he's ever going to be a guy that's creating for himself and creating advantages, not only for himself, but for others, and taking advantage of it through himself. He's a guy that's going to be able to capitalize at a very high level, I believe, off the advantages created for him by a K Cunningham, by a Jaden Ivey, by a Jalen Duren. He can create off ball, attack off ball. He can attack on cuts. He can attack closeouts really well. I just don't believe that he's ever really going to be a guy. And some people do. Again, if you believe this, whatever, you can have Cam at 5. That's fine. I don't believe that he's ever going to be a guy that creates advantages for himself with the ball in his hands to a point where, one, he's a plus playmaker and he can utilize that scoring. And if he ever were to become a good scorer with the ball in his hands, just straight up, I don't believe he's ever going to be able to utilize that gravity he gets from it to create for others to where it helps in a positive way, because I really question his playmaking and his overall feel with the ball in his hands. I question it a lot. He had, I believe, 30 more turnovers than assists this past season, 0.7 assists a game. I don't believe him as a passer. I don't believe in his future as a playmaker. I don't think, and I've said this to you guys before, and when we talked about Sadiq Bey, feel and playmaking, decision making, that kind of stuff with the ball in your hands, that's I think that's one of the hardest things for players to develop. You really just either have it or you don't, I feel like. Now, there all are some examples of guys that don't have good feel with the ball in their hands, and they develop it and become cool, okay playmakers. That has happened. But it's not often. It doesn't happen a lot. So that's why I'm out on Cam. Let me not say that. I'm not out on Cam. Take that back. Not out on Cam. That's why I don't have him as the favorite. I don't have him as the favorite with that because of that. And for me at 5 is high enough where you don't want to take just a play finisher. You want to take a guy you believe that has some chops with the ball in his hands as well. And that's why I take Asar, because I think Asar's shooting progression was legit. You saw him get better as a shooter towards the end of the season. You saw him create shot creation from beyond the arc himself. A lot of it was his own creation on three-point shots, and he was hitting them at a high clip. So if he's actually going to be a fine three-point shooter, that changes everything for him, because I believe he has a future with the ball in his hands. I think he has a future, maybe not as a primary initiator, but I think he can be a secondary initiator, soak up pick and roll coverages and usage, make the right plays out of those situations, make the right passes, get to the rim. I think he's a great off-ball player as well, not just as a scorer or as a finisher on the rim, but again, making reads, being a high-field player. And then defensively, I feel like Ausar's ceiling defensively is through the roof, one of the best in the class. I think he can be one of the best defenders we see come out this draft class at that position. On the wings, guard 1, 2, 3, and 4, and also be a crazy weak side defender as well around the rim. I think he can be tremendous. And if you don't believe in Ausar Thompson's progression as an outside shooter, I can understand why you don't want him, because if he doesn't have his outside shot, it's not like Amen. He's not as good as Amen. He needs that outside shot. I think it's going to be there. I think his progression has been real. If you don't believe in it, I get why you're out on him. Definitely a reason to be out on him if you don't believe in his shot. Or if you don't believe that Ausar has a future with the ball in his hands, creating for himself and others, either as a secondary initiator, or maybe you're so high you think he's a primary. I don't think he'll be a primary. I think he'll be a secondary. But if you don't believe that either, then obviously you'd be out on Ausar, because then he's not going to provide the same type of value that Cam would provide. So I get that. And then with Jarris as well, I think I'd even have Jarris above Cam Whitmore, because Jarris has the potential to be an all defensive team. Also, incredible feel offensively, high field players. That's the guys I like. I bet on those high field players. I think they have higher ceilings, and I think both those guys have higher feel than Cam Whitmore. And I buy some of the offensive creation that Jarris has. I mean, even if Jarris doesn't get some of that offensive creation at the absolute best, Jarris being a great defender, a guy who can hit threes, I believe he's going to be able to hit threes at the next level. He shot 34.5% at college. He has really nice touch. So I believe in his outside shot. A guy who can hit outside shots, great defender, and a great feel, with great feel offensively in the short roll, great playmaker for his position. That you want as many playmakers on your team on the floor as possible. Look at the teams that made it to the finals. Look at the teams that are great in the NBA. They don't just have one good playmaker, two good. They have a lot of good playmakers on the floor that can attack closeouts and make reads. So that's why I have those two guys above. I don't believe Cam's the favorite, but if you guys have Cam as the favorite, I understand. I have to assume the reason why you have Cam as the favorite, because you think his scoring upside is just through the roof, and that he'll get to a point as a playmaker where it's at least passable, I suppose. So I see it for sure. I don't have him as a favorite for the reasons I listed, but if you do, I see it. So let me know in the comment section down below. We're a week away. Where do you guys stand right now with who you guys think will be the favorite for the Detroit Pistons at 5? Let me know in the comment section down below, or over on Twitter at KukaHill. When we come back, I want to talk about, are the Pistons in a position to just absorb contracts this offseason instead of going after a big fish in free agency? We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, you guys got to hear from some of our lovely sponsors. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That is another great way to support the podcast. I think this week, going to the draft, I think the NBA offseason this year is going to be really fun. A lot of fun. I think the Pistons could get involved in a lot of stuff, potentially. And even if they don't, I think as an overall NBA fan, it's going to be a lot of fun this next week. It's going to be interesting to see, especially to see like some of the trades that could happen at the top of the draft. I can't wait for the draft. I can't wait for this week. I think stuff's going to happen, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I asked this question on Twitter. I asked, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about that. What else do you guys want to see me talk about? I got about 20, my goodness, responses on Twitter. And one of them was from a Twitter account, Xander. And he asked a question that I think is pretty interesting. And it's definitely a possibility. He says, if a player with a big contract like Lillard or Beal gets traded, do you think the Pistons are still in the mode of letting teams trade into their cap space for future picks? So what he's asking here, at least from my understanding, is not will the Pistons go after a big contract like Lillard or Beal. The question is, can the Pistons be a third team in a trade involving those guys where they're the ones absorbing the matching salaries for whatever team is getting Lillard or Beal? So the other team trading one of those guys don't have to worry about taking back so much salary is basically why I believe he's asking here. And I think it's a very big possibility that could happen. 100%. Because of this. The big fishes in free agency, and they're not even big fishes to begin with, but the big fishes in free agency, I don't think the Pistons have a chance at now. Portland looks like they're going all in still with Damian Lillard, which means Jeremy's not leaving. Dame wants Jeremy there. Dame's going to leave. If you don't get Jeremy, he's let them know, I want Jeremy. Jeremy has let it known that he wants to play with Dame. Dame wants to play with Jeremy. I don't see Jeremy leaving if they're not rebuilding. So Jeremy's not coming. Cam Johnson, restricted free agent, refuse to believe the Pistons actually would be able to get him without extremely overpaying. I don't think they want to do that. So I don't think they're going to be able to get Cam. Kristaps, sounds like he might opt into his player option and maybe get traded during the season. I saw a report talking about that because of Washington potentially blowing things up. Could see that happening. Be interested to see what happens with Porzingis. And I know I've brought up being interested in Porzingis. I haven't heard anything about the Pistons being interested in Porzingis, so I don't think they're even like looking at him, to be honest. So throw that guy out of there. And then outside of that, who's there? There's not a lot of big free agents. There's not a lot of great free agents in this class. So with the Pistons having that cap space, instead of spending it or overpaying on a guy in free agency, what they could do is use that cap space to just get a heavy contract in a trade and take on picks with it. Now, I'm not in the ballpark of the Pistons, or not in the ballpark, in the group of thinking that the Pistons should take on a terrible contract that also is attached to a terrible player to take on draft picks. What I was thinking is, could the Pistons be a team that absorbs, like maybe if Philly wants to go after Dame, or if Dame becomes available or something, he wants out of Portland or something, or if they want to go after Beal, or if they want to go after anyone else, could the Pistons take Tobias Harris' contract off Philadelphia's hands, absorb his contract? Yeah, I think that would be fine. Tobias is overpaid, but he's a good player, and he would fit what the Pistons need. I would do that. Like, stuff like that. There's other examples throughout the league. I know some people have been mentioning maybe the Pistons, and we talked about in the last episode actually, the Pistons can absorb Tim Hardaway Jr. and Davis Bertans' contract from Dallas to get the 10th overall pick. Tim Hardaway Jr. actually is a fine player. He's a vet. He would fill a role for this team. So it's not like you're trading for a terrible contract and a terrible player attached to each other. You're getting a pick and Tim Hardaway Jr. Davis Bertans, you just wouldn't play him. He only has 1 year left on his deal. Actually 2 years, but I believe the second year is partially guaranteed. But like stuff like that, could the Pistons do that? I think there's a very high chance they could do that, simply because, like I said, the free agency class isn't that great. I don't think they're going to be able to get the top guys that they would want anyways. So those are, and for Davis Bertans, yeah, he is fully guaranteed if he plays 75% of the games in 23-24. So if they just sit him and don't play him, he won't be guaranteed. So you could just do that in the Mavericks trade. Again, like I said, I'd love to hear from you guys. Is there other players throughout the league that you guys can think of that are like, they're on a heavy contract, they're a good player, but they're overpaid, and a team may try to move off of them? Could the Pistons absorb their contract, take a pick with them, and actually have use for them? What players are you guys thinking of with that? The first ones I think of, again, I've already said it, Tobias Harris, potentially Tim Hardaway Jr. with Dallas, and there's another sneaky one. I'm not going to say his name because I know if I say his name, you guys are going to absolutely you guys are going to kill me. But depending on the amount of assets that they would attach to that player, I would be down for it. And I feel like without even saying his name, you guys probably know who I'm talking about. But all I'm going to say is, if they were to attach a lot of picks to it, I would consider it. I would consider it heavily. But yeah, I think that's definitely an option for the Pistons this offseason if they feel like they can't get one of their main guys in free agency. Instead of paying a bunch of smaller guys that may not make an impact, you could just take the trade route and get a pick for it instead. So I can see it happening. For sure, I can see it happening. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for listening today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Draft's coming up soon. Can't wait. Till next time, peace out.